After I kitbashed Loyalist Space Marines into Chaos once, I thought I'd tackle something different today. And as we are reaching the end of October, I thought I'd jump into that battle wagon and build something for the boys. And since these Space Hooligans are already pretty much chaotic, I thought I could include one in here too. Year of Chaos and such. And I had an idea with this one. Let's see if I can pull that off. We start off with this Orc Commando's body, as I really like the jacket he is wearing. Get rid of all the sprue thingies and push away the pile of bits. The first chaotic improvement shall be the chainmail from a Chaos Chosen. I've sawn through it right over the belt and cut it as neatly as I could, as I don't want to damage the belt and its buckle. I also cleaned a bit and after that my working space, because I cannot stand that plastic sawdust. The next piece was the still very orky back banner. I only had to cut away the orky fist symbol and the hair that was bound to it. I used the clipper for the bigger chunks and after that I carefully cut it as smooth as possible with my knife, which I also used to remove the mold lines from his soon-to-be weapon, which is a Death Guard bolter. This bolter has some very obvious chaos corruption in the form of some teeth. I figured as he is still an orc, he still needs a big axe. And even though this one is still a little bit too big for my taste because it's coming from an Orgroid Theridon, it fits more or less exactly for him. And that's also the first hint. Same procedure here, I used the clipper for the bigger chunks and cut it clean with my hobby knife. Maybe a little bit too long, but we will see. But now we come to the fun part. Green stuff and milliput. I formed that green stuff into a long sausage and lay it over his back. And after that I pressed the banner-bearing backpack into it, first very gentle, then not so very gentle, so that the green stuff covers all the air in between his jacket and the gun bags. So I don't have any holes showing the inside of his hollow body. And after that I carefully sculpted the green stuff with my silicone sculpting tool. I tried to match the rest of his jacket as close as possible and pressed it into every recess where the jacket and the gun bags connect. And after that it was time for some milliput. I wanted to recreate the gun grip of that left gun that I had to butcher because of the hair that lay over it, and I figured that milliput is the better putty here, as one can shape finer details with that. Or at least I can. Because an orc has massive hands and fingers, I had to remove a little more material so his hand could fit a little bit better into that bolter. I tried to place the arm in such a way that the belted ammunition is hanging towards the ground. I guess even orcs apply to Newton's law of universal gravitation. And after that he got his right arm and a belt out of green stuff. I had to use two hands here to make sure the green stuff stayed in the exact place I wanted it to be. The patient is stable, no worries. I think the next investment will be something like clamps, so if you have any suggestions, you know what to do. And after that it was time to give him his new loincloth out of chain, and once again push the soon-to-be belt into its shape. Since this is a pretty visible area, I had to be neat here for once. And then he got his left arm that holds the bolter. Just a bit of green stuff once again as a new shoulder joint, again some sculpting, shaping and getting away that excess green stuff and lay it to rest so it hardens for a while. And because I cut way too much milliput, I thought I'd try something new here as well. Recently I got myself one of these texture rollers and it was time to try that one out. A little bit of water so that the milliput won't stick to it and keep on rolling, baby. Now that I have that 2000 nu metal song in my ear, I had to make another brick for the wall on that the orc will stand because the chain was longer than his little legs. And after that it was time for his head, which comes from an Age of Sigmar Orc because I think they just look meaner than the 40k ones. I also got him 2 horns growing out of his skull to chaosify him instantly. And after that I took a very thin long horn from something Slaneshi and shaped it a little flatter so I can use it as a long tongue. Because chaos and long tongues are a thing. By the way, if you like content like this, I would love to encourage you to leave a like and maybe even a subscription, maybe even press that hype button to shout this content out to other like-minded people, as this really helps the channel growing. And after that he got the 8-pointed star of our beloved Pantheon. And I took care of that huge gap between his jacket and the backpack on his left arm. Even though I will cover up most of that in the end, it just feels good to do it. And that was also the time I realized that orcs and green stuff do go hand in hand when it comes to kitbashing. Because at least for me, orcs are very forgiving in covering that up in the overall miniature. And when I shaped his jacket, I worked on the detail to cover that. Something that represents Nurgle. So I combined a Death Guard and a Blight King shoulder because I wanted something that resembles a spike. And again I used Rusty the sculpting knife to form something grotesque that looks like a spike is growing out of his shoulder armor, placed the pauldron on his shoulder and went on with the painting. The first step is to make the orc invisible with Hexlichen and Evil Red wet blended into each other. And now something even more crazy. Blue. Abyssal turquoise to be precise. I thought I want some mutation that is just color and not shape, so it looks corrupted by strange magics. And after he became the luckiest orc alive, or at least half a side of him, I went on with dark green for the rest of his showing skin. I wet blended it into the purple color mix to achieve something very smudgy, undefinable brownish for the deepest recesses. And went a little brighter with a 50-50 mix of dark and Cayman green for his normal skin tone and turquoise for the right arm. I also painted Buckman's Claw onto all the softer showing body parts, like the lips and near the hands. Painting an orc in blue is a different kind of heresy. I still need a good recipe or technique for blue skin tone though, because sometimes it feels that it actually doesn't read as blue skin, but as blue painted skin. At least in my head. And after that it was time to paint all the straps and his jacket with dark rust followed by burnt red. When that was dry, I went on with a 50-50 mix of burnt red and parasite brown to achieve something like an orangey color for the more raised parts, and also his teeth and horns. And while we're here, I want to thank my amazing patrons for their continued support. This month I'm going to drop a patron and channel member only video where I am going to paint a goblin in a very colorful manner, with non-metallic metal and all that stuff, again answering some questions and being a little more in-depth with that. Midway through the painting I thought I'd go with non-metallic metal this time, so I darkened down the metallic parts with Valeros Black and Hexlichen mixed into each other. And when that was dry I picked out the parts that I wanted to be golden and painted a very thin layer of dark rust onto them so that the purple is still showing through. I used the edge of my brush to only catch the most raised details here, using burnt red and after that parasite brown. And when you think, wait, that doesn't look that difficult, maybe non-metallic metal isn't that hard, I have a very beginner-friendly tutorial here on YouTube where I paint a 1000 sun. I will pin it under this here if you are interested. And when that was done, I went over the leathers, the teeth and the golden metal with Elfic Flash for the brightest highlights. And with the steel-like looking parts I just used neutral grey, wolf grey and white, every time using a little less paint on a smaller area. The trick is to only slightly touch the miniature with your brush and be very care and mindful how much color you apply to it. And I only care for the edges on most parts, but the round shoulder and arm. And when I was done with the metallics, I just painted the eyes in yellow and the tongue with gory red and called it done. So, did my idea come through or wasn't it obvious enough? An X for Korn, a tongue for Slanesh, a bolter and a shoulder guard of Nurgle and the colors of Tzeentch. Everything united under the 8-pointed star. If it wasn't obvious, it seems I have to try again. With that said, I wish you the best October, much fun and may the Pantheon be with you or something, I don't know, I'm out of references. So, it's best we see each other in the next one.